Kia ora, I'm Miriam Makamo. Is your child safe at daycare? It probably doesn't enter your head. They're the experts if anything goes wrong. But for the parents of twins Neihana and Aotea, something did go wrong. One twin choked, and the consequences have been devastating. The thing is, it's not uncommon. Around the country, up to 2 small children a week need medical attention after choking, mostly on food. Tonight, for the first time, this Rotorua family tell their story. They speak to Janet McIntyre, hoping lessons can be learned.
I'm Aotea and I'm 4 years old. My brother said quack, 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 and only...
Aotea and her twin Neihana were due to be starting school together in a few months. But not now.
Neihanas can't go to school.
Why not?
Because he choked on an apple. When the spider turned the world spout.
Aotea was with her brother when he choked.
What's the spider out? He went to the ambulance, so he went to the hospital.
And still, she has his back.
I want to be so kind to him.
Why do you want to be kind?
Because he's my brother.
Do you love him? How much? Millions and millions.
She's especially of the age now where she's very social and she just wants to play all the time. And I just wish that her brother could play with her like he used to.
It was an accident, a terrible tragedy, but his parents say it could have been prevented. A small boy entrusted into the care of professionals at a daycare here in Rotorua, his life forever changed. Neihana Renata, not quite 2, sat down for afternoon tea one day and never got up.
We know there are some steps that were taken where things could have been done differently and potentially we could have had a different outcome.
There's children that could choke tomorrow and nothing's been done to prevent it happening again.
But I feel frustrated, absolutely frustrated. Nothing's been done when something can be done.
Twins. They were the first shock of married life for Wee and Marama Renata.
Well, he was excited, but I was like, oh no, 2 car seats, 2 cots, 2 babies.
Yes, I didn't understand the logistics of it all. She did, a lot faster than I did. I thought, wow, yeah, great,
wonderful.
2 kids, awesome. So yeah, just twice of everything. Nappies and crying and everything that comes with it. So
2 very different personalities.
Hello. Aotea. Aotea's always been like a queen type person. Bossing everyone around. Neihana's very playful.
Neihana was so active and moving that she couldn't really catch up with him or stay up with him.
Chasing after him as he ran off into the distance, so...
He was always gone.
As a manager at a log processing yard in Rotorua, Wee's always been conscious of health and safety.
If you manage the hazards well, you can go home safe at the end of every day. It gets drummed into us in the forest industry and I can't understand why we don't do the same in early childhood.
Marama is a doctor, passionate about young people's wellness. She works at a school clinic.
I feel like I am making a difference because I'm there for them to come and get help.
When the twins were 12 months old, Marama decided to return to her clinic. 2 days a week, dropping them off to Rotorua's Little Lights Kindy, a daycare used and trusted by others in her family.
Well, I just think that they'll be safe and they'll be fine. Of course, problems happen, but nothing bad's happened at the daycare that I know of, so I just don't expect anything bad to happen.
But one afternoon in May 2016, as the children were sitting down for afternoon tea, Marama got a call from the daycare.
To say that Neihana had choked. I thought she was going to say, and he'd vomited, but she said, and we're doing CPR, and the ambulance is on its way. So I was like, oh, yeah.
Neihana had choked, eating sliced raw apple served by the daycare staff. Their first aid efforts to dislodge the apple futile.
I do remember asking, but is he breathing? And all I heard was that they're doing CPR on him.
Neihana was in cardiac arrest for half an hour as ambulance officers tried to revive him.
As a doctor, what does that mean?
It's so bad. You know, in the hospital we try and get to people within minutes. Half an hour's a really long time to be in cardiac arrest.
Neihana was separated from the other children, but his sister Aotea still talks about it.
Then the ambulance got the apple out of Nana's tummy, of his puku. Bad apple.
The reality would set in days later on the intensive care ward at Auckland Starship.
We got told that we basically have a boy that can breathe. Blank slate is how I think of it. He was still, no movements. He could open his eyes, but there was nothing there. He could just breathe.
Coming up, why haven't we heard about this case? Why hasn't the Ministry of Education informed daycares around the country of the catastrophic outcome for Neihana?
Everything points to it being a cover-up.
Wait! Come here! Come here!
He can't walk, talk or feed himself.
I'm gonna come and get you!
But Neihana can feel the love of his dad.
It makes me feel good knowing that I can see him laughing.
And I bite your leg, Nay. Here it is.
That I can see him enjoying something.
Bite your other leg.
We have a good interaction here now, but yet, you know, what could it have been like if he was well? Yeah, it would have been something completely different.
For days in intensive care, Neihana was unresponsive, but he clung on against the odds.
It was likely that he could die, of course. It was likely he was alive still.
Children have died choking on apple. In the UK alone, Georgia Hollick and Bradley Birdfield, Sammy Bennett, Ben Masters, and in Ireland, Ron Zellner. And here in New Zealand, 11 years ago, a 14-month-old in a daycare centre in Te Awamutu also died after choking on apple.
You know, I'd read about it on the internet. I thought, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. But I didn't think it would happen to my child, of course.
As a direct result of that death, and after a recommendation by the coroner, the Ministry of Health reviewed its guidelines on how to reduce the risk of choking. This is how the ministry recommends hard food like apple be served to toddlers and babies. Grated like this, or cooked, the same for carrot and celery. But at the Little Lights Kindy, this is how it was served to children, including Neihana, then 22 months old. Raw, peeled, sliced into wedges, he choked on a piece like this.
And so did you highlight any concerns about food when you put them into daycare?
No. Because I just think they're expert. They know what to do. I'm a first-time mum, you know, so I just think, oh, I trust that they know what's best and what's appropriate.
A WorkSafe report into the incident found that the Little Lights Kindy had not listed choking on its hazard register, but had followed regulations that children be seated while eating and supervised, and that at least one first aid trained staff was present. It found one underlying failure, that the kindy served sliced, peeled, raw apple, contrary to guidelines by both the Health and Education Ministries. But there were no consequences.
The Ministry of Health have done a great job to identify known high-risk foods. They've made recommendations that they must be prepared in a way where it's less likely that the child will choke. Their recommendations are great and awesome, but they're not enforced.
I think that there should be some auditing that actually happens in early childhood education centres. Currently we don't actually know what's being served to children. We don't know whether it's safe or nutritious. Lightly cook it.
Tauranga-based Rebecca Bruce is one of just a handful of paediatric dietitians in the country. She cautions daycare centres about risky foods.
I think that there actually needs to be a little bit more monitoring and regulation to see that actually what they are doing fits with the Ministry of Health guidelines.
Do you need some more water?
She's worried about what we don't know about what and how our kids are eating.
There's a lot of children that are in full-time daycare. They're there 5 days a week and they're there for, you know, a good portion of their nutrition, and if they're not getting appropriate nutrition in that time or what they're being served is not safe, then that is a real issue.
It was not safe for daycare staff to give Neihana raw sliced apple, and what they did next when he choked is also being questioned. WorkSafe was satisfied trained staff gave him first aid, but its report is unclear about exactly what staff did.
It doesn't appear that WorkSafe looked in detail as to what first aid was given and whether or not that matched the best practice recommendations for first aid for a child who's choking.
Sarah Alexander runs Child Forum, an advocacy network for users of early childhood education. She's investigated the case on behalf of the family, including conflicting accounts about how staff tried to help Neihana.
There is doubt as to whether or not the correct first aid was given.
Staff did some procedures not recommended for small children by St John Ambulance, like mouth sweeps.
They placed their fingers into the child's mouth to try to pull the object out, but they couldn't see the object. Now that in itself is a risk of pushing the object further in.
The WorkSafe report about the first aid given is scant and vague. Back thrusts, mouth sweep, CPR, etc.
There's confusion. I mean, we don't even exactly know what happened.
What we would like to see is that the first aid is looked at by WorkSafe and by the Ministry of Education. What else can we learn from this to make sure teachers may be a little bit more prepared?
Marama, a doctor, doesn't blame the teachers, but she would have known what to do.
Well, they should have grabbed him, put him upside down with head lower, hit in the middle of his back, 5 back blows, so and strong, you know, really hard because you're trying to dislodge what's stuck. And then if that doesn't work, you turn them over and do chest thrusts.
Wheelie stands.
WorkSafe, reporting to the Ministry of Education, found no immediate failure by the daycare and that it had met all its legal requirements.
Okay, you hold him, lift him up, run down with him.
The daycare was not censured by the ministry,
So mum's a cure?
and until now, the case has not been made public.
There is no record that this incident ever occurred. Parents may leave their child at a service none the wiser as to what its history has been. Why isn't the ministry warning parents that there is potential for their child to be served food that is high risk of choking? To me, this is a serious breach of trust.
Why haven't we heard about this case? Why hasn't the Ministry of Education informed daycares around the country of the catastrophic outcome for Neihana and of the known risks of the kind of food he was given? His family just doesn't want this to happen to any other child. The Ministry of Education declined an interview with Sunday. While they did not advise the daycare sector about Neihana's particular incident, they referred Sunday to 2 newsletters mentioning the importance of supervision and said their existing safety guidelines are clear and fit for purpose.
Are you just enjoying the sun? Can you feel the sun on your head?
Marama has given up her paid work as a doctor to devote herself to her son, permanently brain damaged after he choked on apple and was starved of oxygen for half an hour.
Neihana needs constant care. He needs help with everything, feeding him, helping him touch things and move. He can't move at all, he can't roll.
As his twin Aotea thrives, stronger, more lively, more confident, she's a constant reminder of what Neihana might have been.
I wish he won't be like so he can play with me again.
If I see Aotea by herself, I think he should have been here with us. Yeah, I think about that sometimes. I try not to think about it too much, but sometimes it just pops up. Yeah.
Daycare centres are required by the government to promote safety and take steps to prevent accidents. Yet this centre, part of the Evolve group, served food in a way that's known to be risky for toddlers. Evolve has told Sunday it no longer provides under threes with raw, hard fruits and vegetables.
No parent should have to worry that their child might come home permanently injured or dead, and yet this can happen, and no one apart from those immediately involved will know that it's happened.
What would you say to the parents who are going, look, we don't want to wrap our kids in cotton wool like this?
I will think exactly the same thing, but it's happened to us. And now we have a 4-year-old that is severely disabled. And now I think that cotton wool is there for a good reason.
Ngā mihi aroha e te whānau. We asked the Ministry of Education why they hadn't publicly reported Neihana's incident. They said they began releasing incidents to the public only in 2017, a year after Neihana choked. They categorically refute any suggestion that this situation was kept hidden and stand by the investigation and its outcome. Finally, the Renata whānau wish to thank the daycare staff for doing their best in terrible circumstances to try to revive Neihana.